So the toilet I'm currently squatting on has needed some kind of fix at least 4 or 5 times in the past 2 years. I'll tell you what's wrong with it this time, and we'll go on the journey of fixing it together. I was made aware of today's problem when my daughter came to me and said, "Daddy, the toilet keeps flushing." I looked inside and saw that the problem was that there was a leak in this tank. The reason why that's happening is that there is a red O-ring or seal, whatever you want to call it, that has come off of where it should be. This is not new. The solution before has been to get a replacement for that ring. However, I am tired of fixing this problem. So we're just going to replace this weird Mansfield flush valve. I went to Lowe's and got the universal flush valve kit. I did not know that there were different sizes of flush valves, and I did not think to measure. So I went ahead and got the 2-inch and the 3-inch, and I figured whichever one I don't use, I'll just take back to Lowe's after all is said and done. I feel pretty confident that the universal kit that I'm going to use here is going to be more reliable than this flusher valve, because I did the same thing to another toilet in my house and I've had no problems with it ever since. Let's get started. First things first, we're going to take this hose off of this flusher valve. Boop. Next, we're going to detach the flusher valve from the flusher. You've served us well, string. I've put down towels on the ground right below the tank. I've made sure the water to the toilet is turned off completely. And we're going to detach the water hose from the toilet tank by twisting that white knob thing right here. After unscrewing the piece over here on the left, you then take off this piece on the right, which should free up the ability to take out this contraption right here. There she be. We're going to take off those 3 bolts. And to take out those bolts, you're going to have to loosen those nuts. These 2 are pretty easy to take out. I found a 9/16 inch wrench, and that corresponded with the size of this nut. This one has been taking forever. I think the threads for the bolt that's still down there are really rusted. So whenever I've been trying to turn the bolt or turn the nut with the ratchet or the wrench, it's been turning the entire bolt with it. It's been very difficult to actually keep that bolt still. Looking to Google for some help, I found some suggestions included put more muscle into it, which sounded very unhelpful. Number 2 was get some penetrating oil. I went to the 3rd option, to heat up the bolt, expand the metal involved. After heating it up, I used the wrench and also took some pliers here to try to keep the bolt still, and that seemed to allow me to make more progress on this. We're almost there, but the needle nose pliers are no longer working when trying to hold the bolt. I'm back in the tank, trying to just use the needle nose to try to put a stop to the top of that bolt. Well, that really sucked, but the nut is finally off. The winning combination was putting the pliers flat and pushing down really hard. When movement was being made, it was making a really weird creaking sound, like that was the sound of victory. And there she be. After taking those bolts off, I was able to put the tank off of the toilet and lay it on its side so I could see what's going on at the bottom here. I used a screwdriver to leverage this black ring off of this. I then took this thing off, and with that I was able to pull out this Mansfield flush valve. We're going to go with the 2-inch flush valve with flapper because the 3-inch would not be able to fit into this 2.5-inch hole. First things first, we'll remove this white piece here so we can get rid of this cardboard and also take this paper off of the actual flapper. I then put the new flush valve into the tank, and I positioned it so that it doesn't cover any of the bolt holes that you see at the bottom, and also this big tube that you see here is close enough to the part that's going to bring up the water. These instructions say that the black tube of the flush valve needs to be 1 inch below the top of the piece that's going to give it water. With that in mind, I'm going to position the flush valve over to the right instead of the left, because it looks like there's just the right amount of distance for the tube to go right there. I also adjusted this flush valve so it could go as high as it can go. Don't throw this away. This is called a friction washer, and it's going to go right there. I've hand tightened the white lock nut onto the friction washer. What is it? Was it a half turn beyond hand tight? Do not over tighten. All right, let's do a half turn. It's more of a quarter turn, but I'm not going to over tighten this. Put the red tank to bowl gasket on top of this. Put the tank back onto the toilet and line it up. I put the bolts into the holes. Sorry, new bolts, I forgot to put the rubber washers on you before putting you in. Put the new metal washers and nuts down here below the toilet holes. And as you can see, you've got the toilet to tank red gasket right there, ready to be squished. All right, I think we did it, y'all. Near the end, I decided to use the wrench to keep the nut still while using the screwdriver to tighten. And by the time I couldn't tighten more with the screwdriver without putting a lot of muscle into it, that felt like a really good place to stop. And I can confirm that trying to shake the tank doesn't move it. Now we've put this piece back in and confirmed that this black tube does indeed reach into the hole. Screwed on that piece. Also reattached the water hose. This chain is currently too long, so I'm going to take this piece off the chain and put it down further. I think we have just enough slack to not worry about keeping the flapper open, but tight enough so that it easily lifts up the flapper. You can adjust it so that if you twist this disc over, it'll control how much water is let down with each individual flush. Moment of truth. Let's turn on the water and see if there are any leaks. Tank filled up as expected and stopped when it needed to. Because this hose is so extended over here, the force of the water coming out caused it to jump out of this tube and start spraying everywhere. I could feel the water spraying on my knee. I did see in the instructions that there was something of a metal clip that it expected me to add here so that it would attach itself to the tube and prevent it from moving away like it just did. Yeah, I need to figure out how to fix that tube. That is the one regret that I have, is going over to the right instead of the left. We have our temporary, but hey, maybe not so temporary solution of securing this tube to our flusher valve. What you see here is a combination of 4 different paper clips of various sizes. One of the paper clips is inside the tube to be the connector from the tube to the other paper clips. We have one paper clip that's just on the flusher tube itself. Have a paper clip that's connecting the paper clip of the tube to the pipe. Then I have this massive paper clip just acting as this wrapper around everything to add extra resistance. I didn't see any movement of our paperclip contraption. Overall, I think this will work. And we are done. There we go. So long, Mansfield flusher valve.